In October 25th, 1978, we would meet a character that would forever change the world of horror and cinema. Directed by John Carpenter and produced by Deborah Hill, often collaborators on several projects, Halloween proved to be their most successful endeavor together. Upon release, Halloween performed well with audiences, but critics were initially more condemning of the movie. From film critic Pauline Kael and daily newspapers like the Los Angeles Times criticizing the movie, deeming it from childish to empty. However, in the succeeding years after its release, Halloween has been looked far more favorably by both critics and audiences. Considered to be a classic, celebrated 40 plus years after its release, becoming a big tradition to watch every year around the spooky season, and the movie that kickstarted the trend of the slasher killer. Although Michael wasn't the first slasher killer, with menaces like Norman Bates and Leatherface coming before him, even the movie Black Christmas, released in 1974, serves as inspiration for Halloween. But Michael was the one who popularized the genre, cementing it as an essential subgenre for horror. Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, Ghostface, and yes, even the Leprechaun owe their rise in popularity thanks to the Boogeyman, to the Shape, to Michael Myers. Having killed his sister as a youth in the town of Haddonfield, Illinois, Michael was locked up, looked after Dr. Samuel Loomis, played by Donald Pleasance. Originally there to help the boy, Loomis realized the horror behind the child and spent the next few years trying to keep him there. One night, when Loomis comes over, several patients of the hospital have been found outside, Michael being one of them, now played by Nick Castle. He steals Loomis's car and drives back to his hometown, a hometown where he's been mythologized as the Boogeyman. Told to and amongst kids as a scary story, how the Boogeyman is gonna get you. One kid in particular fears this story, Tommy Doyle, played by Paul Rudd. In the sixth movie, when his babysitter Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, tries to calm his fears, even approaching his old childhood home without so much as a worry. Michael stalks Laurie throughout the entirety of the film, even so much as following her friends, killing them one by one, until he's confronted with his target. Despite her best efforts, Laurie can't seem to kill Michael. Just when the killer is about to be rid of her, Dr. Loomis arrives. The good doctor has spent the night with the town sheriff, Leigh Brackett, trying to find Michael. He comes in at the last second, shooting him multiple times, causing the unstoppable force to fall off from the house, landing on the ground in a painful landing that would kill or even just paralyze anyone. Just when Laurie and Loomis think the worst is over, Loomis looks over to Michael one more time, thinking that Michael has finally been defeated. An ambiguous and petrifying ending, though answered in its next movie and in the rebooted sequel in 2018, was meant to be just that, open to debate. The struggle of Michael Myers, Dr. Loomis, and Laurie Strode was never meant to have a follow-up or be resolved. And Carpenter and Hill's Halloween series was supposed to have been an anthology. But with the success of the first movie, the studio, Compass International Pictures, convinced Carpenter to make a sequel, despite his best efforts to pass it over to other people, such as art director Tommy Lee Wallace, and his intentions for the series to only be an anthology. Regardless of what came next, each new step of the Halloween franchise, and those who try to imitate it, always try to follow the movie's slow yet indelible style. The pacing of Halloween is slow, and while it may not be everyone's style, it certainly wasn't mine when I first watched it, it grows upon constant rewatches. Sometimes, you never know if you're watching a POV shot from Michael's perspective, stalking the people of Haddonfield, from his victims to the everyday folk just living their lives. Or a simple scene with him in the background where you can't even spot him. Most of the scenes from the first half are placed in white settings. The backgrounds have people having fun or simply going about their business. The conversations between the characters are ordinary, the kinds of one you would have with friends. You would see this in movies like Friday the 13th, with the most standard of activities being done, even dragged out. However, Halloween uses each scene to establish a layer of the movie, even developing a plot point that will be paid off later on. From building up the terror of the Boogeyman, onto small drops of backstories of the characters and the goings-on in their lives. Each scene carefully stacks on top of one another, which perfectly reaches the summit that we call the third act. Despite the film's straightforward story of a monster returning to his old hometown, wreaking havoc and terror, the themes of this movie are still discussed to this day, still debated and disputed in videos to articles to blog posts, with many declaring that the movie is about sexual endeavors and pent-up sexual frustration, others debating that it's about sexism, others debating that it's a critique of American social values. Thankfully, Carpenter and Hill have denounced these as the true meaning of the movie, and rightfully so, because what the movie is truly about, a subject brought up even in its most recent set of films, and will forever, sadly, remain true in our everyday lives, is about the nature of evil. How no matter how hard we fight, though small victories can come over it, it can never truly die. The state of what Michael Myers is unknown. Is he human or more? He survived actions that would kill even the strongest of individuals, yet he could walk it off as if nothing had happened to him. His strength is greater than anything one man can withstand. He's a monster, yet how he actually looks doesn't reflect it. From the beginning to end, Michael Myers' appearance is human. He's not deformed or a literal demon. His home life as a kid seems fine. There's no indication he was abused. He was just like any other kid. Until he wasn't. The only person who comes close to understanding him on any level is Dr. Loomis. He could see how Michael views the world, and it scares him. A man once interested in learning from the boy, now determined to put him in the farthest box away from humanity and throw away the key. But the box is open, and it can never be shut again. Loomis warns Sheriff Brackett of the danger of Michael Myers, and though he helps Loomis in his search for Michael, the sheriff remains skeptical of Loomis's caution. Dr. Loomis, from beginning to end, though he tries his best to keep it hidden, is haunted by what he's seen. 15 years of his life, beholden to the worst of what humanity is and could be, first seeing it in the form of what many thought was only an innocent child. And though he may try his best in dealing with him, Loomis can never be truly rid of this dark cloud over himself and Haddonfield. Laurie Strode, an innocent girl, a straight arrow, and generally a kind person, is not only caught in Michael's dark cloud, but in the middle of it. The reason for Michael going after her is never truly understood or known. Was it because she was the first to show no fear of him? Was it wrong place, wrong time with her being at the doorstep of his old home? Or is it because Michael saw her first and deemed her as the one he'll hunt and make suffer? It can never be explained. Michael Myers can never be explained. He never speaks. He never shows an ounce of human emotion. His mask shadows an inhuman soul, and the object itself is vacant of any soul or warmth. What we'll ever understand from this creature is how he sees the world. Perhaps all he sees are victims, and even if he had killed Laurie, he would have gone after someone else. Someone pure to terrify and scar until he does away with and repeats the cycle. No matter if it's Laurie Strode, Jamie Lloyd, or Busta Rhymes.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
Man, this franchise went weird places. What if it gotten weirder under different circumstances? For over 40 years, Michael Myers has existed within novels, comic books, video games, and merchandise. 11 movies have been made about him, and there's a good chance there will be more, with another 40 years on top of it. Guess you think they're gonna stop with this last one? You silly Billy. There's gonna be Halloween movies made long after we're all dead and the maggots are eating our skin. Hey, maybe Michael will finally go into space. And honestly, doesn't that just sum up Michael Myers perfectly? How he'll go on even when each of us have met our end. How there's never a true end to him. How he's a constant in the world. A life forever spent causing harm and horror. A life spent in a world that is reminded of what they can be if all their emotions and morality are stripped. Our worst fears realized. The worst case scenario of man-made form. Imitated but never duplicated. One of a kind. The never-ending tale of the dreaded and horrifying Michael Myers. Bye.